It's 2 a.m. You're on your back, phone 6 inches from your face, thumb moving out of habit more than curiosity. You're not even reading anymore, just scrolling. Wide awake. For no reason you can name. Your ancestors had none of this. No alarm clock, no mattress, no white noise app playing ocean waves through a speaker shaped like a rock. Just a fire, packed dirt, and each other. And they fell asleep the second their heads hit the ground. So here's the real question tonight. What did they have that you don't? Most people assume insomnia is a modern malfunction, a switch in your brain that's forgotten how to turn off. You think 8 straight hours, eyes closed the whole time, is what normal sleep has always looked like. Actually, for most of human history, that block of sleep didn't exist. In 2001, a historian named Roger E. Kirch published something that quietly rewired how we think about the night. 16 years spent combing through diaries, court depositions, medical manuals, and prayer books turned up the same 2 words over and over in language after language. First, sleep. Then, hours later, second, sleep. Wait. Sleep. Twice. On purpose? Exactly that. Kirch eventually traced more than 2,000 references to this pattern, some as old as Homer's Odyssey, written nearly 3,000 years ago, and echoed centuries later in Virgil's Aeneid. In pre-industrial Europe, people went to bed a couple hours after dark, slept 3 or 4 hours, then woke up. Not from insomnia, but on schedule, like something built into the species. They'd lie in the dark for an hour, maybe 2. Pray, talk, check on a sick child. Some, according to a 16th century French physician named Laurent Joubert, used the time for something else entirely. He told couples the best window to conceive wasn't at the end of a long day, but after the first sleep, when, in his telling, people have more enjoyment. This is the part most sleep documentaries skip. An entire continent organized intimacy, prayer, and conversation around a nightly wake-up that we now diagnose, medicate, and lie awake dreading. Here's the part that should actually bother you. Your ancestors weren't sleeping through the night. Nobody was. The unbroken 8-hour block you keep failing to hit isn't the ancient standard you're being measured against. It's the new invention. Here's where it stops being folklore and turns into biology. You think insomnia is your brain failing to switch off. Actually, under the right conditions, that same broken brain organizes itself into a pattern scientists have already mapped, on purpose, without anyone telling it to. In the early 1990s, a psychiatrist at the National Institute of Mental Health named Thomas Ware ran an experiment that deserves to be far more famous than it is. He put a group of healthy adults in darkness for 14 hours a night. No screens, no reading lights, nothing. For an entire month, recreating the long winter nights our ancestors actually lived inside. The first few nights they crashed. 11 hours of sleep, like paying off a debt that had been quietly compounding for years. But by the 4th week, something stranger happened. Their sleep split. On its own. 4 hours of sleep, then an hour or 2 of calm, wide-awake stillness in total dark, then another 4 hours. Your body already knows how to do this. It's not broken. It's just never been handed 14 hours of real darkness to prove it. Now push further back, past E. Kirch's diaries, past pre-industrial Europe, into the Ice Age itself. In a cave in northern Iraq called Shanidar, archaeologists found the remains of a Neanderthal man who lived somewhere between 45 and 70,000 years ago. Half his skull had been crushed, his right arm was withered, likely amputated near the elbow. His leg was deformed. He was probably deaf and blind in one eye. He also lived to be somewhere between 35 and 50. Elderly, for a Neanderthal. That means someone fed him, protected him, kept him warm through decades of long, dark nights he couldn't have survived alone. Nights where the group's wakeful hour wasn't wasted time. It was watch duty. Somebody stayed quietly awake in the dark because something out there could still kill you. Scientists don't love admitting this, but the old image of Neanderthals as disposable brutes has been almost entirely dismantled by one broken, half-blind man that somebody chose to keep alive, night after night, for decades. That pointless hour of wakefulness you're dreading right now? It's not a glitch. It's a feature older than our own species. And once you see it that way, the real mystery isn't why you're awake at 2 a.m. It's why almost nobody sleeps this way anymore. So what happened? If this rhythm is old enough to predate our own species, why did it vanish so completely that Ekirch had to dig first sleep out of forgotten court records like buried treasure? Ekirch found the answer buried in the same documents. References to first and second sleep hold steady for centuries, then start disappearing fast in the late 1600s. Not because human biology changed, because something outside the body did. Street lighting first, then oil lamps in every home. Then, by the late 1800s, the electric bulb. And with it, a culture that started treating night as wasted daylight instead of its own separate world with its own rhythm. Your ancestors' nervous system ran on darkness and firelight. Full stop. No screens hijacking the melatonin your brain releases the second the sky dims. What we now call insomnia was, for most of human history, just a normal rhythm nobody thought to question. Because nothing was interrupting it. We interrupted it. On purpose. For one more hour of work by lamplight, for one more hour of productivity. And we've been quietly paying for it ever since. Here's the uncomfortable stat. Chronic short sleep is now linked to heart disease, depression, and a measurably shorter lifespan. At population scale. The CDC estimates over a third of American adults aren't getting enough sleep, and researchers have tied insomnia to roughly double the risk of depression. This is a health crisis that essentially didn't exist for 300,000 years of human history. It shows up right on schedule with the light bulb. Scientists don't love admitting this either. Sleep medicine largely still treats the unbroken 8-hour block as the gold standard. The same standard Wehr's own research quietly undermined 30 years ago. Here's the part that should really unsettle you. In 2020, on the island of Borneo, in a cave called Liang Tabo, researchers uncovered the 31,000-year-old skeleton of a young adult missing the lower third of one leg. Cleanly amputated, almost certainly in childhood. No infection, no fatal complications. The bone had healed and kept growing for 6 to 9 more years before this person died. That means a Stone Age community. With no antibiotics, no anesthesia, no electric light, kept a disabled child alive through years of wound care, through countless dark nights when infection was the real killer. They didn't have blackout curtains. They had each other, awake in shifts, watching. You have a smart mattress that tracks your REM cycles and still can't tell you why you're awake. They had nothing but darkness and a working night watch, and somehow, that was enough to keep a wounded child alive for a decade. So go back to 2 a.m. You're not malfunctioning, you're not broken, and you're not actually alone in this. You're running the same nervous system that got a blind, one-armed Neanderthal safely through 50 winters, and kept a wounded Stone Age child alive without a single antibiotic. The difference isn't your biology, it's your environment. You've replaced firelight with blue light. You've replaced a dark room with a phone screen at 40% brightness just to check the time. You've replaced an expected ordinary hour of nighttime wakefulness with a private panic that something's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you. You're doing something your species did without shame for at least 3,000 years. You're just doing it in a bedroom engineered to make sure you never get the total darkness that would let the pattern finish itself naturally. Tonight, when you're lying there at 2 a.m., you probably can't fix it in one night. The world outside your window isn't going dark on your schedule, but you can stop treating that hour like proof that you're failing. It might be the oldest, most human thing you still know how to do. You have a $2,000 mattress, blackout curtains, and a white noise app, and you still can't sleep. Your ancestors had a fire and dirt, and they slept like the dead, twice a night, right on schedule, without ever once calling it insomnia. The problem was never the bed. It was the light we refused to turn off.